Ladies and gentlemen, I can't pretend that I'm not disappointed to discover that WIZO discriminates against short people. It was not easy for me to leave the beautiful 12-foot snowdrifts of New Jersey and the crisp, clean, fresh, freezing Arctic air to come to the sweaty, hot, tropical climate of Florida. I don't know how you guys live with the terrible weather here, but I did it because I wanted to salute an evening of heroes. To Simon and Chana Falik and their entire family, who are like family, and for everything they do. For the Jewish people worldwide. From Neely running FIDF, to Chana running another Jewish organization. How many Jewish organizations can one family run? To my own mother, who is my hero, and that's the first reason I have to come to Florida all the time, who was present tonight. And to my rival for introducing the ambassador, his mother, who introduced him at a dinner here in Miami 2 weeks ago. So Yafa, you're some pretty serious competition. My friends, in 2 weeks' time, we will open a scroll, and we will read in an ancient time, in a land far away, when a wicked and evil man came before a king and said to him, Yeshno Am Echad, there exists a nation, Mefuzar Mufarad Bein Ha'amim, dispersed throughout all the other nations, V'dasehem Shonot Mikolam, and they insist on being different. V'lamelech ein shaveh lahalicham, and they should not be tolerated. They should be scapegoated. They should be falsely accused of genocides. They should be accused of appropriating other people's lands. They should be demonized and condemned, slaughtered, and expelled. And the reason why his wicked design did not come to fruition was because there was one man, and his name was Mordechai, who, one Jew who refused to cow, to bend in fear, a Jew of conviction. And ever since then, our nation has survived through the courage of people who stand through Jewish pride, idealism, Jewish principles, and Jewish values. Talk about relevance to modern times. When Esther is unsure whether or not she can confront the king, the president of her time, as to whether she should speak out against an annihilatory threat against the Jews from Persia, modern-day Iran, and the Jews are debating whether she should go before the king in order to make her plea, when it will make her deeply unpopular with that king. Should she break diplomatic protocols? Mordechai says to her, if you wish, you can remain silent. You can cancel your speech. You can cancel your audience. But just know, if you decide to be silent, at this time, the Jews will find another Savior. And history will forget you. The Jewish people will always survive. It is simply a question of through whom. I had the privilege of being sent by the Lubavitch Rebbe to Oxford University to serve as his emissary. And I met thousands of students in that time. They were my friends, they were my confidants. They were my family. And some have gone on to become United States senators. Some have gone on to become billionaires. But the one in whom I take unique pride was a student from Miami Beach, Florida, who I had already known through my school at the Hebrew Academy, who arrived after his time at the University of Pennsylvania and quickly became the dearest friend and the president of my student organization. And he began to redefine defense of Israel on campus at the world's most famous university. And I knew then that he would emerge as a modern-day Mordechai. I knew through his principles, through his conviction, I knew through his idealism and his refusal to bend that he would emerge as one of the Jewish people's foremost leaders. But my friends, even I didn't know just how proud he would one day make all of us. You are sitting in a room with a man who every news agency on earth wishes they could be interviewing right now. You are sitting with someone who is central to a world global story and who just came from the state of Israel. He's working with the Prime Minister on events that are shaping and forging the future of our people, and yet he is here in this room with us. And we all thought that we were coming here to hear Israel's ambassador to the United States address us. But the truth is, my friends, that we are here to look the ambassador in the eye and to tell him that for all of the hurts the enemies of the Jewish people tried to cause him, we will love him more. And we will respect him more. And we will stand with him more. Because he is our ambassador. And he stands up for us. And he fights for us. My friends, Dermer, who emerged from Miami Beach, Florida, is a modern-day Maccabean and a great leader of the Jewish people. And it is my honor to introduce my dear friend and Israel's representative in the capital of the world's sole superpower, Ambassador Dermer. To do this before. Here you are, about to address this room, and I'm asked to announce that you owe WIZO $1.325 million. Or rather, that WIZO raised $1.325 million. Okay, that's truly an honor. My friends, a truly great hero and lion of the Jewish people, Ambassador Dermer.
Unfortunately, I don't get paid on commission. Now, surely, I want to thank you for that very understated introduction. At the least, you didn't credit me with splitting the Red Sea. The credit, Theodore Roosevelt once said, goes to the man in the arena. And Shmuly Boteach is definitely a man in the arena. Shmuly, I want to thank you for your friendship and for everything you've done over the years to inspire me by being a remarkable champion of Jewish ideas and by your indomitable passion to defend the Jewish people and the Jewish state. Thank you. I want to recognize Rebbe Tal Malfa, our Deputy Consul from Miami. Rebbe Tal, where are you? I also want to thank the many friends of mine who are here tonight. But remember, at WIZO there's no free lunch, and there's definitely no free dinner, right, Tom? My mother, Yafa, and my brother, David. Where's David? My brother, David, the former mayor of Miami Beach. They're here as well, and I have to tell you, the fact that both of them will be forced to remain silent for a half hour while I speak is in and of itself the reason why it was worth it to come here to Miami to speak tonight. It's also a pleasure for me to speak for WIZO, an organization that my soccer volunteered for in Israel. For nearly a century, WIZO has been strengthening Israeli society, caring for Israeli children, for immigrants, for needy families. And I want to thank all of you for supporting this wonderful organization. I want to also recognize Noam Yershuni. Noam, you are a real profile in courage. Thank you for being here. And I want to congratulate all the honorees tonight, especially Hill Moyer, whom I've met many years ago and whom I have long admired. Now, like roses, the Jewish people need thorns to protect them. And Hillel has been a huge thorn in the side of Israel's enemies because he speaks the truth and he exposes their hypocrisy day after day, month after month, year after year. So thank you, Hillel, for being one terrific thorn and for tirelessly defending Israel and defending the truth. I'm honored to be with you here tonight. Finally, I want to thank Hannah, Falik, Simon Falik, and the Falik family. Now, for some philanthropic Jewish families, wealth and success lead them to distance themselves from the needs of their own people and instead focus exclusively on supporting universal causes. For others, like the Faliks, success breeds a deeper and deeper sense of mission to help their fellow Jews. And whether it's helping WIZO, the Friends of the IDF, strengthening Jewish communities in Miami, Panama, Jerusalem, and elsewhere, the Faliks are always there. So please join me in thanking Hannah, Simon, and the entire Falik family for everything they do for the Jewish people. I think they deserve a real round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, in President Kennedy's inaugural address, he famously declared, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." And that powerful statement of selfless devotion to America has resonated for nearly 65 years. It has resonated because of the deep appreciation Americans have for this great country. And I feel truly blessed to have been born and raised in America. I have been educated by the wisdom of its founders, inspired by the words of its leaders, and protected by the sacrifices of its soldiers. When I think of freedom, I think of Lincoln. When I think of courage, I think of Normandy. When I think of justice, I think of Martin Luther King. I also have a deep appreciation for what America has meant to the Jewish people. You know, for the Jewish people, the greatness of America can be summed up in less than a sentence, in less than a word, in less than a letter. It's a hyphen. It's the hyphen between Jewish and American. You see, throughout history, Jews, if we were lucky, we faced a choice. We could keep our Jewish identity and be shut out of the larger society, or we could abandon our Jewish identity and become full members of that society. But in America, Jews did not have to make that choice. They could be true to their Jewish faith and traditions, and they could be fully American, just like Irish Americans or Italian Americans or any kind of American. But if generation after generation of American Jews has appreciated what this great country means to them, some Jews do not fully appreciate what Israel has meant for them, both as individuals and as a people. Now, they don't fully appreciate it because those younger than 75 simply don't remember a world without Israel. They don't remember what it was like for the Jews to be a wandering people, waiting ominously for the next expulsion, worrying that roots laid down for centuries could be ripped out at any moment. They don't remember what it was like to be a defenseless people, pleading with kings, presidents, and prime ministers to protect us, or begging them to take in fellow Jews fleeing persecution in foreign lands. And they don't remember what it was like to be a downtrodden people, keeping our heads down and our mouths shut, fearing that by standing up or speaking out, we might irritate an impatient host. Ladies and gentlemen, the birth of Israel has allowed the Jewish people to forget these things. We have forgotten because Israel has given us three priceless gifts: the power to defend ourselves, a place of refuge, and a sovereign voice. Now, century after century, in country after country, hatred for the Jewish people would inevitably boil to the surface and unleash violence against us. A massacre in Granada, a blood libel in York, a pogrom in Kishinev. In 1896, Theodore Herzl was a reporter at the Dreyfus trial in Paris. What Herzl saw there convinced him that an anti-Semitism would soon boil over all across Europe and engulf the Jewish people. Herzl then and there, committed himself to do everything he could to establish the Jewish state. Now, Herzl was right about many things. Because of his remarkable vision and his leadership, he set the Jewish people on a course that 50 years later would result in his dream coming true. But Herzl was wrong about one thing. He believed that the establishment of Israel would end anti-Semitism. He thought that the hatred of Jews was a byproduct of Jews being a minority everywhere and a majority nowhere. And he believed that if the Jews had a state of their own, anti-Semitism would wither away. That did not happen. In fact, Herzl's belief has now been flipped on its head. A century ago, Herzl and others believed that the cause of anti-Semitism was that the Jews did not have a state. Now many believe that the cause of anti-Semitism is that the Jews do have a state. In the first half of the 20th century, our enemies chanted, "Jews, go to Palestine." In the first half of the 21st century, our enemies chant, "Jews, get out of Palestine." The truth is that the establishment of Israel did not end hatred toward us. The old hatred towards the Jewish people has been replaced by a new hatred toward the Jewish state. But what the establishment of Israel did give the Jewish people was the ability to defend ourselves against that hatred. The Torquemadas, Khmelnytskys, and the Hitlers faced a defenseless Jewish people. Now the Mashals, the Nasrallahs, and the Khomeinis face the Jewish people who can defend themselves. They face a Jewish state whose soldiers possess the courage of the Maccabees of old, and whose people possess an iron will to defend ourselves in our ancestral homeland. A world without Israel was a world where the Jewish people were eternal victims. Today, the Jewish people refuse to be victims ever again. Ladies and gentlemen, a world without Israel was also a world where the Jews had no safe haven. For 2 millennia, Jews facing persecution were forced to flee or were thrown out of places where they lived, in England, Spain, Portugal, and elsewhere. And sometimes we had no escape from our oppressors. We were hunted in one land, and the gates to other lands were often slammed shut. The depths to which the Jewish people's dependency on the goodwill of others sunk became clear in a conference held in Evian, France in 1938. President Roosevelt organized the conference as he came under intense pressure to do something about the growing Jewish refugee problem in Europe. And Hitler made clear to the delegation of states who met there that they were free to take all the Jews, or the criminals, as he called them. Here's what Hitler said. We on our part, these are Hitler's words, we on our part are ready to put all these criminals at the disposal of these countries. For all I care, even on luxury ships. But virtually no one took the Jews. With the gates of what was then called Palestine closed by the British, and with quotas on the immigration of Jews to America, the Jews were trapped. 6 million were murdered, including hundreds aboard the St. Louis, a ship that came within a few miles of here, a few miles from freedom, a few miles from salvation. Ladies and gentlemen, the attacks on Jews in Europe today bring back horrible memories. Jewish cemeteries and synagogues are desecrated. Jewish children are gunned down at school in Toulouse. Jews are murdered, shopping for groceries in Paris. And people are asking themselves today many questions about the rise of anti-Semitism in Europe. But one question no one is asking is this: where are the Jews going to go? And the reason they are not asking that question is because Israel is the answer. Unlike the past, Jews today don't have to worry whether some country will deign to take us in. Today, we get to decide. We get to decide whether to stay in the countries we call home, or whether to return at long last to our national home. You should all appreciate, all of you, what having that choice means, not just for the people of France and the Ukraine. You should appreciate what that means for you as Jewish Americans. You know, I'm not an Israeli ambassador who goes around telling Jewish American audiences to make Aliyah, and I will not do so tonight. I can give you many reasons why people should make Aliyah, from the daily excitement of living in Israel to the deep sense of meaning that comes with knowing that in Israel you are both a part of Jewish history and a part of the Jewish future. But I believe that making Aliyah is a personal choice for every Jew, and frankly, I've never met a single Olay who came to Israel because an Israeli official told them to. But I do want everyone here to appreciate what having the choice to move to Israel means to you as American Jews. You choose to live in America not because you have nowhere else to go, but because you love this great country. You choose to live here in America not because you have to, but because you want to. And that is why I believe Israel has enabled Jewish Americans to be prouder, not just as Jews, but as Americans. And that is why having Israel as a place that welcomes all Jews is not just a blessing for others, it's a blessing for you. Ladies and gentlemen, for 100 years, for 100 generations, the Jewish people had no shield and no refuge. But we also did not have a voice. As our enemies libeled us, as they spewed the most outlandish lies, the Jewish people were forced to be silent. Over the centuries, some of our greatest champions were allowed to debate with their persecutors, but they were never truly free to speak the truth. They were forced to defend our people with their tongues tied by the threat of torture, death, or both. And even when Jews were no longer afraid to speak out, they often did not have a chance to speak. At that same conference I spoke about at Evian in 1938, there was a delegate there from mandatory Palestine. Her name was Golda Meir. She was there as an observer. She was allowed to attend, but she was not allowed to speak. As the fate of the Jews of Europe was being decided, she was forced to remain silent. Ladies and gentlemen, Israel has given our people a sovereign voice, and the Jewish people will never be silent again. Israel has enabled us to exercise our right to speak, and never is it more important to exercise that right than when the Jewish state faces a threat to its survival. Now, no Jew speaks for all Jews. That was as true in the time of Moses as it is today, as the old joke goes, 2 Jews, 3 opinions. And no Israeli prime minister speaks for all Israelis, just like no American president speaks for all Americans. But the prime minister of Israel is not just the elected leader of Israel's more than 8 million citizens. He is also the leader of the one and only Jewish state. A state which gives every Jew around the world the right to citizenship. A state where the largest Jewish community in the world resides. And a state which was established in the Jewish homeland and which is entrusted with securing the Jewish future. That is why when the Prime Minister speaks, the Prime Minister of Israel, when he speaks, he does speak on behalf of the Jewish people. And the Prime Minister's decision to come to America in March and address the Congress is a decision to speak on behalf of the Jewish people at a critical time. A time when the leading powers of the world are conducting negotiations over Iran's nuclear program. Iran is a country that calls for and works for the annihilation of Israel. Its terror proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and others, encircle Israel with tens of thousands of rockets. And for decades, Iran has targeted Jews from Buenos Aires to Burgas to Bangkok. Now, to be sure, Iran is not just a threat to Israel. It has effectively taken over 4 air capitals: Baghdad, Damascus, Beirut, and Sana'a, and Iran is hungry for more. It threatens nearly every Arab state and is the world's foremost sponsor of terrorism. And its hatred of what it calls the little state, Israel, pales in comparison to its hatred of what it calls the great state, America. That is why Israel, the region, and the world all have a stake in preventing a nuclear-armed Iran, even if not everyone realizes it. But Israel, the Jewish state, has a special stake, because Iran's genocidal intentions, coupled with nuclear weapons, could pose a threat to our survival. That is why Israel should not be afraid to speak up. That is why Israel must speak up. We speak not out of disrespect to President Obama. Israel deeply appreciates everything President Obama has done and continues to do for Israel, including much support that is not known and may never be known. We speak not out of a desire to wade into your political debate. Israel does not want to be a political football between Democrats and Republicans. We deeply appreciate the tremendous support that Israel has enjoyed on both sides of the aisle, support that we hope will remain as bipartisan in the future as it has been in the past. Israel's Prime Minister speaks because it is his obligation to speak, because the leading powers of the world are negotiating an agreement that could endanger Israel's future. Because Israel does not have a seat at that negotiating table. And if Israel does not have a vote on a matter that is vital for our future, Israel should at least have a voice. Ladies and gentlemen, 75 years ago, Golda Meir, who would one day become Israel's prime minister, was forced to remain silent. Today, Israel's prime minister will not remain silent. He has been given an opportunity to express his concerns in the most powerful parliament in the world. He has been given an opportunity to make Israel's case before an American Congress that may very well play a crucial role in determining the fate of any deal with Iran. And as that old E.F. Hutton commercial went, I hope that when the Prime Minister speaks, people will listen. Ladies and gentlemen, I have spoken tonight about what Israel has done for you. Because of Israel, the Jewish people no longer beg others to defend us. We defend ourselves. Because of Israel, the Jewish people no longer plead with foreign governments to open their gates. We open our own gates. Because of Israel, the Jewish people no longer cower in silence. We stand proud and unbowed. And now that I've told you what Israel has done for you, I ask you to do something for Israel. I ask you to stand with Israel at this critical hour. Stand with us now when we need your support the most. You know, Israel faces great challenges, but our people have been through worse. 3 weeks from today, as Rabbi Botev mentioned, we will recall one of those episodes. We will read the story of the most famous woman. Hannah, don't take offense. The most famous woman in Jewish history, Queen Esther. We will read of how her courage saved our people from annihilation. And we will read how the Jewish people defended themselves against their enemies and turned the tide of our history. Today, we must also face the storm with faith and courage. And I have no doubt that just as was true 2,500 years ago, the Jewish people will prevail. Thank you.
Women's International Zionist Organization presents to the Honorable Dermer, keynote speaker. Bless those who faithfully devote themselves for the needs of the community and to the rebuilding of Eretz Israel. Thank you so much.